Okay, folks, so in the last segment, we looked at how we can use style sheets to add sort of style and shape and content and color, well, not content really, but color and placement to visual elements on our web page. And we can see that this is going to be a really powerful way to sort of not only determine the layout, but the look and feel of our visualization, right? Maybe a little abstract right now, but at least we've got something we can see, right? We're not asking our users to go look at the console. And you know, the thing that's really missing at this point, right, which is that, you know, we have all this great data, right, that we can see in our console window. We've got all of this data about the states, right, that we want to be able to visualize, right, that you guys had in your visualizations, right? How do we connect this to this, right? How do we connect behind the scenes data that we've loaded into our page to the visual representation that we're seeing on its surface? So as we mentioned before, just the same way that, you know, we realize now that classes and style sheets, that style sheets are the way that we get you know, style, position, and color and stuff like that. The way that we get visual elements to show up on our web page. And we know that JavaScript is the way that we get data, right? And the way that we've been getting div elements, right, that we've been getting things to show up on the page so far has been actually to just write them directly in our HTML. But if our data is being loaded via script, well then we need some way to get that script to hook up with the visual elements. And this is where we're going to start to see one other really important property of divs, which is that they have this class attribute, right, which we saw as kind of like almost like a shorthand that helps us refer to kind of like a shorthand thing over the style attribute. There's another attribute called ID, okay? And what ID is it's just a name. Again, so what we're starting to see here, right, is that in every piece of this, we have this concept of variables, right? We have this concept of labels, right? So in JavaScript, we have, you know, we have var whatever, right? Got to go back to this one for this. I got to get some variables in there, right? I have var candy list. I have var fave candy, var num candy, right? And the label for that space in memory is going to be whatever name I give that variable. In my style sheets, I have this idea of the dot. The dot says, hey, I'm going to create a style sheet, and it's going to be a class named box style, right? So anywhere that any div that you find on the page that says class equals box style, I want you to style it according to the properties that I've described here, okay? In this case now, what we want to do is we're going to be able to give an individual name to our divs. So for example, I'm just going to call this div1. Whoops. Div ID equals div1. I don't know why that is happening at all. It's just being annoying. Maybe it doesn't like something crazy happened there. What's going on with you? All right, let's try this again. Aptana, you're messing with me. Oh, I'll tell you why. Haha. So there's a good lesson for you. I started to type div and it thought I wanted to make another div tag. So I'm just going to call this first box, right? Funny things can happen, right? And I'm going to call this one second box. Okay? And so for the most part, let's assume that we want first box and second box to look broadly the same. Right? You know, basically we want them to be red. We want them to have a red background. We want them to have gray text, et cetera, et cetera. Is that what I left it with? Yes. But maybe there's some subtle ways in which we want them to be different. So again, let's take a look at this. There's my div tag. What's up? There's my div, right? So they're exactly the same. But what if actually, for some reason, right, I decided that I want something about first box to be slightly different. Let's say that I want the font size to be a little bit bigger, right? And you know, we'll start imagining reasons why we might want to do this a little bit, you know, sort of soon. But what I can do is I can say, look, in general, anything that has the class box style, I want to look and behave like this. But actually, the first one I want to treat a little bit differently. And so the way that I can have this class that describes the general properties, but then what I can do is I can use the hashtag. And the hashtag says, hey, I want you to look through all the divs, and it's going to grab that div by its ID. And so I can say first box right? You can see again, it gives me a little pop-up here, right? It kind of knows what I'm doing. And I can say first box, and I can say font size is going to be, oh, I don't know, let's go crazy, 24 pixels, okay? So what exactly does this mean? What it means is that because font size isn't specified, it's not because font size isn't specified. In fact, I'm going to specify a font size. Actually, let's do color. That'll be a little bit more obvious, I think, right? So first box, right? Everywhere else, I want the text color to be black. But on the first box, I want it to be white. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my hexadecimal value. Can't seem to get that quite right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That means white, okay? So what we see is that I've got box style, text color is black. But first box, I'm saying on just that one first box, the one where the ID is first box, I want you to change the text color to white. And if I upload this, okay, again, it's going to give me that question. Uh-oh, so what happened there? This is actually where we're going to start to see why this entire panel is really valuable for us, not just the thing. Oh wait, sorry. Gosh darn it, I did it again. Are you guys laughing at me now? You should be laughing at me. Why? Why? Because I made a change to my HTML page and I forgot to upload that. See? Even when you have a lot of experience, you start going to look in the wrong places. This would not be so much the issue if you were working on the live server, so at this point, if you guys want to do that, I don't blame you. Okay? Now we see what we've accomplished with this, right? So I actually deleted a couple of elements in there. I got rid of my H1 tag and things. And so what this is, the point on this, right, is basically to say that we have two ways of targeting divs, right? We have this ID, which the ID should always be unique. In other words, no two divs should have that same ID tag, same ID value. But class, you want multiple divs to have it because class is going to describe the attributes that they share. This is the principle behind cascading style sheets. The idea is that at the top level in classes, you make as broad generalizations as possible, and then using things like ID and additional classes, you can sort of get very specific styles applied to specific pieces of the page. So now we're getting to this question of how do we, we figured out a way that we can target sort of multiple divs at the same time because we want them to share certain visual attributes, but also how we can make that more specific, right, by using this ID tag to apply things to very specific divs, right? Even if they share the same class, we can get specific about some of the style choices by using that ID tag. We can also use classes in an additional way with this, but I kind of want to just latch onto this idea of the div ID for a second here, because this ID is actually what's going to provide us a way to hook together our HTML, our divs, with our data in our JavaScript. And why is this the case? Well, because one of the many things that jQuery does well is it makes it very easy for us to use JavaScript to actually create div tags. So not only can this JavaScript, console log things and load data, but it can actually create new div elements on our web page, right? And actually add those visual boxes to the web page. And jQuery here is something that makes this much easier. Again, one of the reasons why we use it. So I'm just going to give you guys, I just want to show you guys this in a sort of basic sense. Now, as we've mentioned a few times, we don't want to try to start adding things to the web page until the web page is entirely loaded. And that's where our document ready comes in, right? So I have this document ready write to console function. So I'm not going to try to add any divs to the HTML page via scripting until I actually have everything else loaded already, right? Otherwise we could get in all kinds of a mess. So what I know is that when my HTML is completely loaded, it has a body tag and it will have these two div tags. And furthermore, I know, because I wrote it, right, that there are two divs available that the IDs are first box and second box, right? This gives me a way to target a very specific location because once I create my new div, I need to put it somewhere, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use jQuery to just say, hey, I want to create a new, so I'm creating a new variable, right? And I'm saying, hey, I want to create a variable new div, okay? Again, I'm saying create a space in memory and label it new div, okay? This is where it starts to get, I should say, starts to get a little crazy, right? You're like, it's kind of crazy already. Now again, my $ and my parentheses say to my computer, go to that jQuery library and look up how to do this thing. And I'm actually going to put a div, the markup for a div tag in there. Now what this does is in the background, right, in that when you pass this string div that looks like this to that special jQuery library, it goes, oh yeah, I know what you want to do. You want to actually build a new div element, right? And so now I have this one, and I can actually do more than that, right? I can actually say, hey, I want to put attributes on this element, right? I want to give it an ID, for example. And so the typical way we do this is in line. You'll notice again that pretty much, again, everything that we have is going to be an array, a string, an object, a Boolean, or a number, right? In this case, what we start to realize is almost everything is objects. And so I'm going to say, in here, I'm going to put the ID, and I want that ID to be new div, right? This is going to be the way that once I put this on my page, that I can see that it actually worked, okay? And now, this is the other tricky thing. So, just the same way we have with document, right? We see how we sort of wrap this $ in parentheses around the word document. That word document is purple, right? It's a little bit special. That document variable stands for our entire web page, right? In this case, what we can do is we can say, hey, jQuery library, I'm going to give you the ID. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to choose first box. I'm going to give you the ID of a particular div that I know is on my web page, right? I am the programmer, right? I am the repository of knowledge. I know that there's a div called first box. Okay, and then I'm going to use this append function. Append kind of sounds like, it sounds like pushing something onto the bottom of a list, and in a way it is, except in this case, we're adding a div box to another div box, right? We're putting one div inside the other, and sort of stacking and nesting these boxes inside each other is going to be a big way of how we create our pages. So again, a little bit on faith here, I know, but what I'm going to say is, okay, so in this line, hey, jQuery, create a new div. Now, where does that div exist right now? It only exists in memory, right? It's just a variable. So you can think of it exactly the way we think of another variable, of any other variable, right? So our HTML markup can be a thing inside a box in memory the same way that it can be just as easily as it can be a visual thing on the front of our HTML page. So now, the trick here is that we can actually use jQuery. jQuery can also grab things from the markup on our HTML page, and it's using that hashtag, it's using that ID tag as kind of a key. It's saying, let me look through all of these. Aha, I found one. I found one where the ID is set to first box. And now I'm going to take that, and I'm going to stick inside it the div that is in the location in memory called new div. This is a lot to absorb, I know, but I just want to give you guys a quick preview of this. So if I upload everything, we know I have to upload everything, right? I'm going to do that, and I'm going to upload my HTML file. I'm actually not sure I even needed to do that, but I did. Okay. And now, what do I see now? I'm in my elements tag. Look at that. My script added a div. Now, right now, all it has is an ID, but if I want to make it visible, what do I have to do? All I have to do is give it a class attribute. We're going to look at that next time, and we're going to roll this in to some of our logic on our data. See you in a minute.